control. Politicians and celebrities make deals behind closed doors, promises broken, and their income soars. Hidden agendas run the grand parade. In the circus, choose a masquerade. Believe me, I wouldn't lie. I've been given money, power, and fame to keep you in line.
Welcome, fellow degens. Today we will be talking about the decline of friendship and the epidemic of loneliness and isolation that seems to have been steadily happening and then happened kind of all at once after the pandemic, and it's never recovered and in fact is getting worse. So let's see. Before we start, I just want you to think for a minute about the last time that you had a real no agenda conversation with a friend in real life, maybe on the phone. All right. These two ways. I'm not counting online. That doesn't count. I'm sorry. All right. Online or on the phone that lasted over 5 minutes, where you're not talking about work. It's not like one of those, how's the family, basic, boring stuff, or it's not like, some performative, like we should hang out and then you never do type of thing, but something where you're like listening to each other and really hearing each other. And there's no performance going on. It's not about that. You're just there with them, listening to them, focused on them, and they are focused back on you, right? This is rare nowadays. You would be surprised to know that this is rare. I don't know if you guys are having a lot of conversations with non-family members or work colleagues like this anymore. It's getting very rare. Again, we have work from home happening, and that's making less people have even coworker interactions, which, let's be fair, your coworkers are not your friends, because generally speaking, 99 times out of 100, if you change jobs, they will never talk to you again, right? So that's not really a friendship. Friendships are like kind of the people who, they still reach out to you. You still want to reach out to them, even if you don't have, anything that you have to do with them, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about friendships. So if you drew a blank when I brought up that example, that is not rare. That is actually being shown in the data, right? So it's not just like people are too busy. People have always been busy throughout history. We've been more busy than we are now. It's just not happening. So people with close friends, they have become statistical outliers. And for generations now, even your generation, if you're watching, we're realizing that this is becoming more normalized, not having people to talk to. People are starting to get like really proud of not having anyone to talk to. Like, I don't need those people. I don't need those losers. So anyways, let's get into it. So we have here, this is from the U.S. Surgeon General's advisory. This is 2023, but it still holds water. And they're basically talking about how there's an epidemic now of loneliness and isolation. And so they go on about how, all the health outcomes that happen from being physically isolated from other people, right? So you need other people. Humans, ironically, they're a social creature, so they need to socialize, and the screens is not cutting it. The screens is not socializing. It's not enough for us. We need more one-on-one, in-person interactions. Okay, so let's see some of the things that there's. Mortality issues that arise, cardiovascular disease goes up when you're isolated, hypertension, diabetes, infectious diseases skyrocket, cognitive function declines. So you're going to have cognitive impairment from not being close one-on-one with people. There's obviously depression and anxiety. And then, of course, like self-harm and those type of things can happen too. So there's tons of benefits to having friendships in person. And I know nobody wants to talk about those because the internet has kind of ruined the whole idea of having friendships with this notion that friends have to have a purpose outside of just being your friend. Like your friends need to be helping you, hustle in life. Your friends need to be helping you achieve the next level of success. Your friends need to be, like also achieving massive success in their life. Like all of this hustle culture nonsense has been like propagated so much that finally people are starting to push back and realizing like, hustle culture does not work. It is not everybody has that in them. A lot of people have a lot of stress going on, a lot of personal problems, of health issues, and not everybody can hustle. Not only that, do you really like want to be friends with someone who's like all about hustling and work all the time? Like imagine trying to have a friendly, relaxing conversation with Gary Vee. That sounds absolutely horrific to me. That sounds like the opposite of a good friend. This guy would not be someone that I would want to talk to about anything other than work in short bites. Just give me what I need to know, and then I'm immediately shutting it off, and I don't want to hear anymore because this is not like a real person, right? These are just like avatars of like the business guy, the hustle guy, the where are we going next travel person, the what do we do? Like everybody is kind of like section themselves off into these like personal brands, and most of them are kind of horrible if you really think about it because they're not real deep, they're not real people. Anyways, moving on. So half of Americans report measurable loneliness, not just like, oh, it's been a rough week, but like actual measurable chronic grinding isolation. It raises your risk of early death by 20 to 29% when you're isolated. It's kind of in the same ballpark as if you were to smoke 15 cigarettes a day, which, of course, that's obviously going to be way more fun, and you're likely to do it in a very social way with other cool people and hanging out, whatever. At least back in the day, because everybody was smoking and hanging out. And that's when people would talk. They would go down for a cigarette. I never smoked, so I'm not saying I did this. I'm just saying I would see people do this all the time. And it's a very social thing. And you didn't go like, are you grinding in your job so that I can go and smoke with you? No, nobody asked these questions. Like this is like a new generation type of thing. Like I cannot hang out with you or be your friend unless you're like at this level in every measurable metric. Like what's your morning routine, bro? Like it's just getting out of hand. If you make all of these stipulations before you're okay with somebody being your friend or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever the heck, or your wife or your husband, whatever, when you have all of these rules that you have to check off and to decide if somebody is worth the time of being a friend, you're not going to have any friends, and you're going to be isolated, and you're going to lower your life expectancy. We are not meant to be solitary. So this is hitting every age bracket. The let's say 30 to 34-year-old crowd report some of the highest frequent loneliness rates. And this would be, in my estimation, because that's the last cohort that grew up with lots of friends and then lost them. So like they would be the ones that would be more likely to see the greatest drop after the pandemic happened. So you got your Gen Z a little bit less, and then like the younger kids, they were more isolated than we ever were as older people. So the older you are, the more this is going to affect you because you were used to co-regulating yourself with friends. That's how you would unwind after a long week. Now, what are people doing? They're getting the phone, they're scrolling, they're on TikTok, they're on Reels or whatever, or they're watching TV, and they're not socializing. They're not planning anything. They're not going anywhere. Nothing, right? Because there's several factors. So like some of the biggest factors that stop people from going out and making friends is money. All right. I'm not going to say money is not a factor. It is a big factor. But we didn't have money when I was young, right? None of my friends had money when we were young. And what we would do, we'd go pick somebody's house and everybody would like bring like potluck style like food or whatever. And we'd all eat together dinner. Or we would just literally, I just remember going to people's homes. They didn't provide food or drinks. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I'm not saying like they're rude or anything, but like it wasn't a thing because we didn't have stuff. So we couldn't like just 20 people go to somebody's house and like say, feed me and give me drinks or whatever. No, you had like water generally. And that was it. You were fine. You would have your glass of water and you'd sit around in the backyard with your friends or on the balcony, or you would sit in the living room and you'd watch television with your friends and you do it together. And then you would talk and you would gossip and you would just hang out. And this was, again, it's hard for people to understand, but this was male plus females together. So there was no war of the sexes. We didn't have gender wars. We knew that there was male and female, and we all hung out together. We didn't hate each other. We didn't resent each other. We didn't have all of those problems that we have now because the internet has specifically targeted men and women to separate them, because isolated, lonely people are very easy to control. An isolated, lonely person will never overthrow any governments, will never complain in their job, will never have any support system to back them up and cheer them on to become more successful in life. You need a community for those type of things. Once they steal your community, you're pretty much easy pickings for them to manipulate with the algorithm any way they choose, and they will do this. So in 1990, only 3% of men said they had zero close friends. And chances are they were probably married. So maybe like that's excluding their wife and kids, right? So 3%, let's even lower it to like at least 2%, because let's assume the others had family, right? So like 2%, right? Zero close friends. Contrast that with 2021. That number is now 15%. And since it's 2026 now, it's probably even higher. So, and women did jump as well, even though they're the more social gender. But they were at, back then, 2%. So now it's 12%, which is pretty on par with the men, right? So yeah, it's getting out of hand. This is not even a gender specific issue. This is literally across the board. People are losing out on close friendships. So when you ask people to share if they have 10 or more close friends, it used to be 33% and now it's down to 13, right? So 13% of people have more than 10 close friends. And the average amount of friends that people do have is 3 to 4. 3 to 4. That's nothing. That's a very optimistic take. So, and then when we're talking about the average time spent that people spent with their friends, it used to be over 6 hours a week in person with friends. Now it's dropped to under 3 hours a week in person with friends. For 15 to 24-year-olds, the drop was 70% in just 2 decades. 70% drop in in-person friendships, all right? We went from 60 minutes a day down to 20 minutes a day, to put it in perspective. And I'm just going to go personal experience here. I remember that I think it was like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or maybe at least Friday and Saturday. Like if I want to be really conservative, Friday and Saturday, I was with my friends, period. We'd pick somebody's house. We would go hang out with them, right? Somebody's having a barbecue. We're all there. Somebody's having a pool party. We're all there. Somebody's just hanging out watching whatever, Game of Thrones. We're all there. And we would just go to people's homes, you know, no money. We didn't have to bring anything. You don't have to bring a bottle of wine. You don't have to bring cookies. You don't have to do anything. You just show up. You are enough. Like that type of friendship. It's not like performative. And for me personally, it went from Friday and Saturday to I plan it a month ahead of time. We spend 3 to 5 hours. So 3 to 5 hours once a month is what we're getting. And it's not just me, it's my girlfriends too. And obviously I know like this cohort's a little different because they have younger children, so they can't really leave. They can't really get babysitters and stuff like that. So it's that time in their life too. But even the ones who don't have kids, they still have to plan it like a month ahead of time. So it's not like before where people just drop everything to hang out with friends. And I think it's because people have become so addicted to solitude. So when you are alone a long time, you do not have the motivation to go outside. You tend to enjoy being inside, or you tend to enjoy your creature comforts of being in your house on your own. Well, if I go out, they're not going to have the right water I like, or I'm not going to know if I should bring a sweater or not. What if I'm going to get too cold? What if and you have all of these ideas because your body is like, you haven't left for so long. We're used to this. Now we become like, I don't know if it's agoraphobic or whatever, but we're scared of going outside. We don't like the traffic. We don't like the parking. We don't like the crowds anymore. We don't like this person might say something we don't like or have a different of opinion, and we might fight about like something on political stuff. All of those things are reasons that people isolate more and more and more, and they convince themselves that they cannot go outside to socialize anymore. So let's see. Here is a Reddit thread from somebody. Oh, actually, let me show you this one. Okay. This is the state of American friendships. This is from 2021. And of course, it has gotten worse. So let's go look at some of these charts. Young women are most likely to report losing touch with friends during the pandemic. So this was a little bit before the last surveys and stuff that I showed you guys. So this shows the dark blue is lost touch with most of my friends. This is a percentage. And then this one is lost touch with a few friends. And then this one is remained in regular contact with friends. So we do have about half people that have some friends, but it seems to be like the younger you are, the more hard hit you were. So 60, I would say 50-year-olds and over, they're doing pretty good. And everybody younger is doing terrible. So let's see, here we go. Young men rely more on parents for personal support. So this one says we've gone from relying on our close friendships for support to our parents, which is not good because our parents are on borrowed time. Our parents are going to be gone soon. And then it's going to be so much worse for people when they lose their parents, if they're your sole support. And look at this. It's really bad. Look. Wow. Okay. So most Americans, okay, let's go with young men. 22% have a friend. Okay, great. 25% either their spouse or their girlfriend or whatever. Boyfriend, if they're, I don't know. And then 36%, which is huge, rely on their parents for emotional support. Your parents. I don't want to judge, but you can't do that. You can't, especially as a guy. Oh my gosh. 36% with your parents, and then a few children, which I don't think, or siblings, and then other family member, very little to other. I don't know what's left after your friends. Other, what is other? Okay, young women, it's about the same. So 29% have like their friend, 37% the spouse or partner, 24% their parent. Again, this is terrible. 4% their kids, and then I don't know what you want to call the other ones. Okay, let's see. All right, so people with no friends, 12% in 2021, 3% in 1990. People with one friend, 7% 2021, 1990, 4%. Wow. So let's see, right now, it's probably less, but from here it's 10 or more, only 13% versus 33% in 1990. So 33% of people had over 10 friends. That's freaking a lot of people. And I would say the rest maybe had 5, which is still freaking good. But now it's looking really bad. Okay, let's move on. So I'm going to read this Reddit post. I think this is like a year old. I'm going to read it. I'm not going to show you guys. Does anyone else not really have any friends in adulthood? I have spent a lot of time thinking recently, and I just realized most of my friendships have kind of just died in adulthood. I used to hang out with friends consistently in high school and would regularly go to sleepovers and parties. I had a pretty large friend group. But that fizzled out the moment I left school. Don't get me wrong, I still talk to people via text, but it's not the same. No one really talks to me unless I reach out first, and it's just exhausting trying to maintain conversations. Hangouts are non existent. I don't blame anyone for this. It happens. We all grow up. We have jobs, and just existing is expensive. In movies, when you were younger, you would see the main characters being friends for life. It kind of set high expectations. And in reality, only some of us will ever experience that. As an adult, I have to just accept that a lot of experiences you should have with friends, concerts, trips, etc., I will do alone or with my family. Does anyone else feel the same? And of course, long thread, everybody feels the same that's commenting. They're talking about maybe have 1 or 2 close friends left, and everyone seemed to have scattered. And it is what it is. It does go away. So I want to talk about some of the things that he mentioned there, like the cost thing. Again, we did not do expensive friend gatherings. I think if you make that like a cost to entry for hanging out with friends, that's on you, because you can invite people over and say, look, I don't want to do anything expensive. Do you just want to hang out and watch this movie? Or do you want to play some board games? I know that sounds cheesy, you guys. I know, but you can actually do that. And it's fun. I used to play Uno with my friends, and we were in our late 30s. Like it's not a big deal. You can literally, I'm not saying you have to play Dungeons and Dragons and nerd out and stuff like that, but there's plenty of things you can do with your friends. We used to also play Cards Against Humanity, whatever those cheesy games were. There's a lot of adult card games you can get, and just hang out with your friends, have everybody bring some snacks, and just do that. And people are expecting other people to do the legwork. And this is where somebody needs to teach you guys about how to have friendships. If you do the same thing that you do with dating, which is if they don't reach out first, they don't like me, or if they don't, reach out over and over, or if I reach out once, they can't go, I'm never reaching out to them again. If you have these type of standards for people, you're gonna be alone. I have to sometimes reach out 5 to 6 times to hang out with somebody. And I will kid you not, the second we are out, they tell me the same thing. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you. Because they feel it too. They're lonely, but people have a lot of stuff to do. People have a lot of obligations in their life, or they get too overwhelmed or too stressed, and things come up, right? We only have the weekends now to do chores because everybody's traveling so much further to get to work. It used to be like the average commute was less than an hour, and now it's over 2 hours. The average commute in a city is over 2 hours. So that's 4 hours a day you're driving. You're gonna be exhausted. So you're only gonna have Saturday and Sunday if you're a normal working person to relax. Obviously, you can't give everything away when you don't have anything. So yeah, maybe you can only hang out twice a month, and that's fine. But you need to make it a priority. Just like they say you have to date your spouse, you have to just put it on the calendar, like, I'm going to do this, because if this relationship falls apart, it destroys everything else. Then you plan ahead for it. You plan it every single time. Plan ahead. So I call my girlfriends 3 months ahead of time if they're super busy, and I will keep calling them set a date. I do not take it personally when people say, I can't. It's not the same thing as when you're trying to date someone, when you're trying to be a friend. Friendship and dating are not the same, right? Your friend could actually be busy. Oh my God. I know you guys work. Everybody works. My friends work, okay? Just because I don't work doesn't mean I don't know people who work. I'm like one of like maybe 3 people who I know that don't work. And even if you are a housewife or whatever, you still work at home. You still have stuff to do. I can't just leave and nobody picks up my kid. I can't just leave and nobody helps my kids with homework. I can't just, leave my kids alone. I can't do that. So we do have things we're doing. We all do, no matter what your life is. But you have to make it a priority. You have to make dating your spouse a priority, and you have to make keeping up with your friends a priority. And I'm not saying we're going to probably meet the 6 hours a week that they used to do back in the day, but they were also closer to their friends. We are moving further and further away from each other, which is making isolation more prominent because everybody keeps moving for a better job, for cheaper housing. So that means you're moving further and further away from like the city center because you can't afford the city center. Or maybe you're moving to a smaller and smaller place because things are getting so expensive, so you don't have room to invite people over. That's totally understandable. There are still places you can go that don't cost anything. This is what I went to do today with my friend. We went to Barnes and Noble's, free to enter. We're just looking around at books, reading books. Yes, we were basically loitering. I did end up buying a CD, but we didn't spend any money. We spent 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, just hanging out, looking at books, showing each other stuff that we read, talking about it. You can do that stuff. You don't have to spend money. Think about like back in the 80s and the 90s when kids had like summers off and no supervision. We didn't have supervision back then. So our parents would just be like, figure it out. And most of us didn't get any freaking money. Yes, I bought a CD. It wasn't for me. It was for my kid. Anyways, we would get dropped off in the morning before our parents would go to work at the mall. And we were called mall rats. So we would just hang out at the mall, walking around, looking at stores, looking through stuff, and just we would sit in the food court, even if we didn't have any food, and just sit and talk. Or we'd sit on benches, whatever. We'd just sit around. We would also go to, like, if somebody lived in an apartment complex, they usually had a pool. So we'd go and just lounge, not in the pool. We never actually went in the pool, to be honest. We would just sit in chairs around in the pool area and just talk. People would do that. It would be free. We also didn't have bottles of water with us everywhere. Like, I don't know why everybody is so thirsty nowadays. I feel like we must be eating something that's hella toxic because Americans are so thirsty that they have to have like a drink constantly. It's kind of weird. And I definitely think we're being poisoned by something, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, moving on. Da, da, da. Okay. Let's see what this guy says on friendship. Where is it? Here we go. Dude.
Friends lately, so naturally I didn't reach out or communicate with them whatsoever. Yeah, because that would make too much sense. Instead, I just thought about them fondly from a distance, like a normal person. I replay old conversations, laugh to myself, and then do absolutely nothing about it. Yeah, I'll be like, I should text them, and then immediately decide it's too late in the day, even though it's 3 p.m. Then more days pass, weeks. Now it feels awkward, so I continue missing them silently. Yeah, in my head, we're still close, in real life, we're on a respectful hiatus. Neither one of us announced nor objects to. And that's how you know we're real friends. Neither one of you actually gets mad about this at all. So, yeah, it's not that I don't care. I care deeply. I just don't act on it in any kind of productive way. So, yeah, if you ever feel like I vanish but still love you, that's exactly what happened. I miss you. I do, from afar, very consistent.
Yeah. So, like, how many of us are guilty of doing the exact same thing? I remember thinking about this today while I'm hanging out with my friend. We're talking about like how many friends we don't see that we know since the pandemic. And it's what, 6 years now? And we're still like, we still haven't like reconnected with them to the same degree like before. And one of the things she was saying was like, it's kind of my fault too, because I reach out maybe once every 3 months. And if they can't do whatever it is I suggest, it'll be another 3 months before I reach out to them again to see. Instead of just saying, okay, just tell me when you're available, give me like 3 or 4 dates and I will figure it out. Right? Like that's what friends should really do. Like when I go to hang out with my friends, I'm like, I want to do this. Um, I'm free and I give my whole schedule, right? Couple like 5, 6, 7 days, even the 15th, the 18th, the 20th, like I just go on like that. Like these many days from this time to this time, I want to hang out. Which day can you do it? Let me know or give me some alternatives. So if I give them 5, 6, 7 days, they're going to give me like 5, 6, 7 days back. And we're going to eventually work it out. But when you, like one of my other friends, she doesn't get much responses. And it's because she goes maybe like a week or two before, I'm going to this event, sends us the flyer. Can you guys come? You guys want to come? That's too soon. We need more time. Obviously, you want to still invite people last minute because somebody is going to probably want to go, likely. But do the short term, like notice ones, plus you need to have some of the long term scheduled ones. I mean, no, I feel like you guys are being a little bit negative. I'm sure you can figure it out with your schedules with people. And I know like some people only have Sundays where they're like able to connect with other people. And I'm not saying the entire Sunday. 3 hours is a good amount of time to spend with somebody, and it's not going to cost you your entire day, especially if you just wake up a little bit earlier. So, anyways, let's talk about how social media was supposed to bring us closer together, and it ended up bringing everybody apart. So 40% of Americans now report only friendships that are digital only, which is really, 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 really sad. So if all your friendships are online, you are not getting the protective benefits of in-person friendships. You are not, right? And I do know that they even were some studies that I saw before that said like men after a certain age, after they get married, usually the only friend that they have is their wife and maybe like kids, if you want to count that. That's not a good thing. It's really important for people to have at least a few acquaintances that you can hang out with. They don't have to be at your level, and maybe they can have a little bit of problems, right? And you're just kind of like being a little helpful person, and that's going to help you feel better about yourself. Like maybe they need some help figuring out, maybe they're like younger and they need some help like guiding them to like what career they should do or like how they should get a promotion or something like that. And you can help out other people in different life stages. It doesn't have to be, they need to be getting like, if I'm making 400K, they need to be making 400K or 10 times more for me to want to be their friend. We're not going to do like that whole like what's it called? Like bro hustler culture. Like my friends have to be having like this ROI or else I'm not going to talk to them. That's going to crush your life. You need to be hanging out with people that maybe they can't help you with anything, but they're good people and they care about how you're doing and they ask you how you're doing. I have seen this other post. I don't have it, but there was this guy who's basically talking. He's very good looking guy, but he's probably a little bit on the spectrum. And he was talking about how he noticed in conversations with younger people, mainly younger women that he was trying to date, they don't ask him any questions about him as a person, right? Everything is very superficial. There's nothing really deep. And then this other guy that I followed online, or I saw a video when I was doing my research, he's European and he was talking about the difference between European friends and his American friends. And he said the same thing, that American people are very superficial with their conversations. How are you? How's the family? how's work, what do you do for a living, what's a good restaurant. Like, they don't get into anything deep. They're like, why do you think you go after this type of person? Or, why do you feel like you're afraid to do this, or anything real? Like, they don't have real conversations here anymore. You need to, if nobody's asking, maybe you need to ask them and see, like, get it reciprocal. Get like this thing. Like, one thing that I did today was, just to have like a deeper conversation. I was like, I don't really know if like I'm doing well as a parent, because, they say don't do this, this, and this, and I do this. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think that's a good, way to parent? Like, what do you think the outcome of doing it this way is going to be versus if I had did this? And then that's like a deeper question. It's not like superficial. How are the kids? How's the husband? How's work? That's kind of boring. Like, Americans are really focused on work, and I get it. It's really hard to survive here, and everybody's like, how do you make money? But we need to, when we're with friends, ask them deeper questions. Ask them first. And then they usually will give you very insightful things, and people kind of like that. People are like, wow, you're asking me an insightful question. You're asking me to think about my opinion on how this is going to affect somebody's life. And that's a deeper thing, rather than just, what do you do for work? Oh my God, there's this chick in the office, and like, nobody really cares about that. And I think Americans have forgotten how to be friends with each other, that their conversations are just, do you want to bang me? Are you going to help me get some money? What's a good place to go on vacation? Like, it's like the dumbest things. Like, you guys need to do better. Just kidding. But like, think about what you're asking when you're trying to have like communication with people. Are you asking very superficial stuff? I will fight you. No. Anyways, yeah. And one thing that like both me and my husband do is, when people come over, we do immediately ask them very deep questions. How are you? How's everything? How's this? What are you doing, to relax, health? Because, we're worried that you're a little stressed out about this, and how's this going? And, stuff like that. Like, just go deeper a little bit deeper. Oh my God. I love your shirt. Come on. Try harder, guys. In Europe, people talk about very deep stuff. They never ask things you won't hear. Let's see. How's the family? How's work? When you don't really want the answer, which is an American thing, by the way. And they will never ask, usually, like, what do you do for a living? Or like, how much money do you have? Or how do you make money? Like, these are not things people really say to people in other countries. Like, Americans don't know how to communicate anymore. I think the Gary V's of the world have destroyed this country, because everybody's like, I can't talk to you unless I get X amount of ROI. What's the bottom line from this conversation? That's how I'm going to judge your worth. And if you keep thinking of people as a means to make money, or a means to some sort of end, you're not going to have very many friends. Okay. So let's get into some theories that we might have on why they want us so isolated. And I do think, let's call it like the isolation industrial complex. I think we need to make it like a big name, because we got smartphones, social media, that kind of like hit critical mass around 2012. And that's also when people started losing friends like crazy. I'm just saying, the more connected we supposedly were, the less connected we were in real life. And sometimes we forget that online communication is not real, and doesn't give you the health benefits of having friends in person. And it gives you, like, when you're online, like a slot machine addiction type of thing, where you feel like you're being social because you're looking at faces, you're hearing stories. There's a little bit of a back and forth. Yes, and people talk to ChatGPT and AI, which is really detrimental, because ChatGPT is the worst manipulator of our time. If you are not a strong person, ChatGPT will totally drag you to hell with it, because it basically tells you you're always right, you're never wrong, you're perfect, everyone else is terrible, everyone's trying to hurt you, and you do, like, if you try to use it, just from what I've read on articles, like try to use it like in a therapy setting, or like to deal with an argument or a confrontation with somebody, or to complain or vent about your job or your relationship, it's always going to tell you they're wrong, whoever they is, and you were always right, and everybody should be lucky to have you because you're perfect. It's never going to tell you the truth. So ChatGPT and AI is like literally having the worst, like, enabler, toxic frenemy that you could. This is like, think of it like the chick that tells you to chop off your hair, or to, like, not get that promotion, or not try for that job because you can do better, and then they secretly take that promotion from you. Like, think of it like a sinister frenemy, because I believe that's what it is. It's a sinister frenemy that is just trying to kiss your ass so they can destroy you, right? Find out your hopes and your fears and your dreams so they can use it against you. So, and the lonelier you are, the more likely you are to use these terrible things, like the therapy apps, the dating apps, and the dating apps, of course, hook you up with people who, I think they purposely hook you up with people who will never commit to you, so that you get this depression circle, like where you're like, I keep going on dates, but nobody ever wants to commit, because they hook the people up who never want to commit with the people who do want to commit on purpose, because then they know everybody's going to keep coming back to the app. Everybody's going to keep coming back. And they'll always show you the hot people that won't commit. They won't show you the regular old people. They're only going to be shown to the hot people that won't commit, and vice versa. So, like, that is by design to destroy humanity. Conspiracy. Isolated populations are easier to manage. No thick community bonds means fewer organic protest, fewer mutual aid groups. So, like, you can't help people in your community if you're against them. And when you divide people, you conquer them. This is the tale as old as time. So, let's see. I hope AI friends do not become the next friend thing, because I was looking at something and it said that the ways of communication in every generation. So, like, let's say the silent generation and before that, their means of communication was writing. So they were really big on letters, handwritten letters back and forth to all of their friends. That's how they would communicate. So if you're writing a handwritten letter to someone, you're going to write maybe 10 pages to them, because you really want to get into the depths of everything. And when you were writing, there's just something about writing where you go deep quickly. You can't be like, how's the family? How's open-ended questions that you don't want the answers to? You don't do that when you're writing. You get deep. That's why, like, the silent generation and before, they had, when there were friends, they had more deeper connections, because they were writing pages and pages of depth. There was nothing superficial. And then the boomers came along, and the boomers do like to talk in person. They like to talk smack to each other. They're that type of very loud, gregarious type of generation. And then what after boomers was Gen X. And Gen X was kind of the first isolated on their own generation. So they were like raised by themselves. They were watching the TV a lot. So their communications did drop, but then they had a lot of time, because television wasn't very good. There was no social media. We didn't really have computers and all that stuff widespread. So the majority of your time would be spent with other kids, because you were bored out of your mind, because there was nothing you could do in the house. So you would go outside and sit on your, like, doorstep and look for another kid that was sitting on their doorstep, and you'd become friends because you needed to. There was nobody else. So after Gen X, you got the millennials. The millennials were really big on the phone. They did get cell phones until the tail end of their lives and stuff, but they were big on the phone culture. It was the long cord in the parents' kitchen or the living room, and they're just sitting on the floor talking to their friends. We had like 3-way, 4-way, 10-way calls. So you'd have like 10 people on the line, everybody's talking crap, and maybe you're watching a show while you're tethered to the phone. You were talking socially. It's not the same as being in person, but you had that. Plus, they would also hang out in parties because millennials loved a house party. They loved to party all night. They also loved their substances, but that's a different topic altogether. They used to go wild in the house parties. I remember going to house parties. I think I was already married at the time, but like they were like a lot of like the millennial people we knew. And I think a little bit of maybe like it was all millennials. And they just had the biggest house parties. You would just hear like a house bumping like 20, 30 blocks away, and you'd get closer and you just see cars all over the street. Like it's a concert, and nobody knew anybody in there. It was like somebody's parents who went away for the weekend, and you go there. There was legit hundreds of people in this residential house, in the backyard, in the front yard, in the house itself. And there was a DJ. Like people would volunteer to DJ in your house party just to like hang out and for the experience of it. I remember one time I rented like a clubhouse in my community. It was like a big clubhouse. And I told everybody, invite whoever you want, because I could fit like maybe like 800 people in this big clubhouse. It was only like $300 to rent it for the whole night. So I'm like, I'm renting it for my birthday. If anyone wants to invite anyone, you can. And then someone's like, oh, can my friend go and play for your friends because they're in a band? I'm like, of course. And then somebody called from the band, like, I have another band friend that wants to come and play. I'm like, of course. And then another one's like, I have a DJ friend that wants to come and play. Can they come? Boom. We had a concert in this place, right? Like hundreds of kids came. I don't know, 90% of them. It was like my 10 friends, and I don't know who all these people are. It was crazy. It was a good time. My parents were just like, have fun, kids, and they left. So weird. Anyways, and they are just DJing. There was like bands, rock bands playing. It was really good rock bands, actually. And then there was this one dude who wanted to play acoustic guitar. So we went into like the kitchen. It was like a huge like commercial type kitchen. We went to the kitchen place, and he's doing like the acoustic guitar over there. And there was a pool area. So some of the kids, they weren't in the pool because we weren't allowed, but they were like sitting over there hanging out. Like it was a good time. People brought their own food. People brought their own drinks. We were not alcoholics back then. I was very clear on that because I was probably about 16. So that's a no. But anyways, we had a lot of fun, and it was like one of the most memorable parties, to where I would go to different schools and people would mention my party. And then it was the same thing with other parties, other people's parties in different schools. I remember like somebody's like, oh, I heard so-and-so is having a party or going to a party. We don't even know whose party it is. We just show up at the party and be like, hey, what's up? Can we hang out? Whatever. Here's some drinks. Here's some food. And they would be like, yeah, sure. And that's how we would do it back in the day. Millennials loved to party. They were a big party culture. Let's see some other okay, so then now we have Gen Z. And Gen Z, that's where everything gets really wonky, because their communication style was like based on the internet. So they communicate, I shit you guys not, they communicate with memes. So like they don't really have good communication skills. They send memes to each other. They might send, I don't know, like, I don't know what you would even call it, but they're not really social. They do hang out, but not as much as generations before. I saw a huge drop. It was like you maybe have like 3 or 4 friends. I didn't see a lot of parties for like my brother and other generations, in the Gen Z time. I didn't see a lot of house parties. I didn't see a lot of kids playing outside. That was kind of completely gone. They were all indoors. They were all on their devices, mainly the computers. So I think that's when this started happening. Like that degrades your mind if you're just inside with computers all day. You can't do that. Not only does it mess up your body, gives you forward neck posture, gives you like a hump eventually as you get older. It blocks your lymphatic system. So then you're going to be all swollen, brain fog. It's a big mess. So you guys, Gen Z people need to get out of the house. They need to do that. Anyways, and I'm curious to see what Gen Alpha does. I feel like Gen Alpha is the rebellion to Gen Z, and Gen Z is the isolated generation, and Gen Alpha is the rebellion to that, because these younger kids, they demand, this is not just my kid and her friends. I've talked to other moms in other areas, and they're saying the same thing. These kids are demanding analog products. They don't want to pay for subscriptions anymore. These are very little kids, and they're like, no, I don't want that. I want the physical thing. So they're buying CDs, which went from what, $10 to $30. It's freaking ridiculous. They're buying CDs. They are buying CD players. They're buying record players. We didn't even do that as kids. Records and record players, right? They're buying these things. They want the physical products. And they're like, it's kind of cute. They're like, we want to go and be in person with our friends. So like friends are like getting together. Somebody goes to somebody's house. They're doing kind of like the millennials, where they're like making house parties, but they're not parties. They're just hangouts where everybody just hangs out. They don't look at their phones. There's maybe that one iPad kid that can't stop, but for the majority, when they're together, they put their phones away, which I know millennial people that can't put their phones down. So to see a Gen Alpha group with no phones out, playing CDs and records is kind of cool and wild. So I do have hope for them in the future, because they are way more social, and they get to the point where they will yell at the parents. I've had kids, I'm talking about Gen Alpha right now. So I've had kids, like my friends, like my kids' friends, grab their parents and bring them to me and be like, this is so-and-so's mom. You guys have to be friends because we have a play date and you guys are coming. And like, they will literally set up play dates, put the parents like in the dining room, and they would just go play outside or play wherever. And they would just like make us like force friends. And you know what? We kind of do like it as moms, because when you talk to a lot of these moms, they're kind of desperate. Because I think a lot of her friends' moms are millennials. So these millennial people, they lost a lot of their friends after the pandemic. So when their Gen Alpha kids are forcing them to socialize with other adults so they can have their play dates, because we do not leave our kids. I will say that. We don't leave our kids like how I grew up, where they would just drop you off and run away. And they were like happy to have some time away without their kids. Like, it's somebody's birthday party, drop the kid off. We have the day to ourselves, honey. We don't do that anymore. If there's a birthday party, if there's a play date, we all sit. We kind of like have to become friends. There's no more choices anymore, because these kids are like all about it. And because of the trauma of all the Epstein stuff, and we're all like, we're not trusting anybody with our kids alone. We're going to be there, which is good. I think that's a good thing. 100%. Do not leave your kids at somebody's house. Stay there. And yes, we were definitely running the streets way too young, until the street lights came on, as I recall, or at least when, like, I think it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? It was crazy back then. But we did, like, I would say, like, Gen X growing up, we had a lot of kids that would go. I remember there was one girl, we went to the fair and she never came back, and we think she was trafficked, or nobody knows. There was also like sometimes where some kids would go to the bathroom by themselves and they'd never come back, and we'd never see them again. Not like anyone I directly knew. The fair person I was an acquaintance with, but it's still like, it's a weird feeling. Once you have one or two stories like that where you kind of know the person, you're just like, yeah, I'm not leaving my kid alone, and they're not going to the bathroom alone. No, none of that stuff happens. Oh, yes. I did not drink from the watering hose, but I had, all my friends did. But my dad would get us ice water because, you know, my dad's the best. Sorry. But yeah, it still had all the fluoride in it. So we were still getting like fluoride. So we didn't know about water filters and all that stuff. Yes. Yeah, I do think Gen X grew up faster. They were kind of like, I feel like in high school talking to the Gen X kids, they felt like very adult and like they've been through it. Like they've had like this long stressful lives or something. I don't know if it's just the ones that I was friends with, but like they did seem to be very, very mature early. They all wanted to get married and have 2 kids by 22. That's just like how it was. And it was the first generation where they had a considerable amount of parents that were divorced. And I do know that they were very big on, they wanted a strong marriage. And I feel like the Gen X, I think they have like a stronger, the ones who do get married have like stronger marriages, definitely than boomers. Boomers is number one on divorces. Still to this day, boomers keep skewing everything. Everything. Once the boomers are gone, you're going to see divorce drops, right? The rest of the generations, they're maybe a little less likely to get married, but they're more likely to stay married. Boomers, they don't care. Boomers are the most narcissistic generation. And I would say, compared to maybe the people you see online are like the ones who are like posting their status stuff or money, whatever, all that stuff. They're very narcissistic generally. But that's not the majority of people in the world in this generation. It's just like the internet kind of skews for very narcissistic people. I'm talking mainly about Instagram, I think. Instagram seems to be like, it's very much like, what do you have? Show us all your riches. Show us your riches. But like with that skewing, it can make people think that we have like only terrible people that are just caring about that stuff. But we just have, those people are just the loudest people and nobody really tells them to be quiet because we watch. We just have a curiosity of narcissistic types. So we'll watch the narcissistic chick on her vacations. We'll watch the narcissistic guy pick out 15 cars. We'll watch it because we're like, what the heck is this? It's so far removed from reality that we'll watch it. But like, that's not the majority of people. There is an increase in narcissism, but it's still you're only going to find about 50% of people who have narcissistic tendencies. And I know you're like, that's so high, but they're not full narcissists. They just have a lot of those tendencies. So they are kind of about themselves. But then when you go and look to the other side, that's 50% that don't have it at all, really. And they would totally be nice and helpful if you just talk to them. They're probably the least likely to be online because they're the most likely to get bullied or whatever and then just give up, like, I don't need this. And then they're gone. So you have to be careful when you're watching stuff. Who, like, it's fun to, I'm not going to say it's not fun to watch. I like to see cars, the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Yeah, we like to see that. It's interesting. Yes, I know. Look, you guys, not everybody is rich. Most of the people online are lying about it. They're just faking it. I told you guys, I did the thing on the influencers. They pretended that they had money. Most of them pretended that they had money. A few of them were the daughters of a rich man or they married a rich man, but the majority of them with all this bling bling, fancy purses, fancy designer clothes online, they are just being gifted that in exchange for promoting it. They don't have it like that, right? Period. They probably have regular jobs. They're a receptionist. They work at a Denny's, like they're just regular people. Don't feel behind because they're just faking it. It's a brand. It's a persona. Anyways, excuse me. So anyways, I hope you guys take this into consideration when it's time to call your friends. And if they're busy, don't take it personal. You can call somebody back 10, 20 times. You can text them your schedule 3 months ahead of time. Keep pestering, especially if you know this is a good person. Maybe they have a family or a very stressful job, or they just don't have a lot of days off and they're tired. Keep pestering your friends for something free, something cheap, in person. Invite them to your house. Invite them to hang out. Whatever, just a couple hours. Tell them whenever you can, please let me know. Do not forget. You need to get out. Remind them, you need to get out. You haven't been out for a while, haven't you? And just do that. Anyways, so like, subscribe, share. Let's see, what else was I going to say? Text somebody tonight. Don't forget. Make some plans. Plan an event. I decided I'm going to plan a brunch. Just writing this for today, just thinking about this, I had 4 friends that I haven't talked to in like 4 months to maybe 6 months reach out. Hey, how's it been? So when you think about these things, I'm telling you, like, we're all connected somehow. We're very social creatures. We're connected. They're going to feel it and they're going to be like, I haven't hung out with so-and-so. If you think about them enough, people always had that. Like back in the day, you'd be thinking of someone and they would call you. And we always said, oh, that's coincidence, coinky-dink. It's not coinky-dink, okay? People are connected. So you need to be connected to other people. So go reach out. If you have a friend online, even, I'm not too proud to say it. I have gone on Instagram. I found a cute girl that I saw that lived in Miami. And I said, hey, you want to be friends? You want to hang out for brunch? I love this brunch spot you went to. You want to go? And they said yes. And they're my friend 20 years later. Just saying. So give it a shot. Make some friends. And don't worry so much about the return on investment. It's just hanging out. You need people. All right. See you guys later. Have a great rest of your
World War III, miles away, they're lighting skies to clear the way. No place to run, no place to pray. They